Hello and welcome to this episode of Guitar Essentials with Nate. Now, my friend Anne, who has been following these videos, asked me if I could go into the basics of picking. So it's going to be a natural follow-on from what we've been doing, which is strumming chords with a metronome to keep time. And what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce some basic picking techniques using a plectrum in our right hand and using the same chords as before, so that's G and D, just to give you an introduction on how to use a pick and to pick your chords rather than strum them. So let's get started. Now we're going to be focusing on the right hand for this lesson, which is why the camera's focused on my right hand here. That's just so you can see a little bit more clearly what we're doing. And I'm using the metronome set to 66 beats per minute, which you can hear ticking away in the background. So let's just talk about a pick. Now a pick is simply a piece of plastic or bone, or in some cases metal, that's shaped in a way that lets you pick the strings easily. Now there's a couple of things to mention about holding a pick. One is that we don't actually hold it between the point of our finger and thumb like this. That's actually not the way you hold a pick. It's actually not an efficient way to strum or to pick holding it that way. What we actually do is we hold it between the first joint of our index finger and our thumb. So it kind of looks more like that. So it's kind of more gripped between the joints of our finger and thumb rather than on our tip of a finger and thumb. So that's just the way to hold it, and it means that when you're picking strings, it's kind of at right angles to the strings there, and it gives it a nice kind of clean, efficient pick. The other thing to point out is when we pick chords, generally you'll pick the bass note of every chord and then one of a number of other strings in one or a number of other combinations. Now what I'll do to kind of keep it simple, I'm going to use the same pattern through this lesson, but obviously you can choose to vary that and to try out new patterns just so you get some variation. So again, we're going to be playing a G chord and a D chord. And remember that the G chord, we actually play the very bottom string, but the D chord, you remember the bottom note of the D chord is actually the D string, which is this one. So when we pick these chords, we're not going to be playing all of the strings. We're going to be picking the bass note of each chord, and then we're going to be picking the treble strings of the chord. Now what I'll do is, the pattern I'm going to use is the bass note, then these top three strings. So it's the G, B, G, E strings. And that's the pattern I'm going to be using. So bottom string, G string, B string, G string, E string. And then I'll play the G string again. So it's kind of like a little pattern that we go round and round and round. So I'll show you what that looks like. 3, 4. So that's the pattern that we're going to try to follow. Now I've already played it for you there, so just have a try at that yourself. Obviously if you need to, just set your metronome to a slower tempo, because we don't want to just be rushing ahead. The really important thing at this stage is that your changes and your picking is connected and fluid. We're not looking for speed at this point, it's fluidity and connectivity. So you want nice connected pattern and nice and fluid movement, so you're not having to kind of stop and start. So I'm going to play that through again so you can see it nice and clearly. 3, 4. go. Now, if you're feeling really brave, you can begin to come up with different patterns, different arrangements. Another little arrangement you can do is a very simple kind of up and down the strings. Now, if you were playing in 6/8 timing, so instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6/8 timing would be more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would look something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's just another pattern that you can use. You can vary, if you want to stick to 4/4 timing, you can vary the pattern that you're playing. So something like that might be... actually, that's probably not a good example. There we go. So there's lots of combinations, lots of patterns you can use. Just have a play around yourself. The really important thing at this stage is get your changes connected and fluid, and obviously in time with a metronome. And just follow the first pattern I showed you to get used to it. It's a nice simple pattern. And then once you're comfortable, once that feels fluid, just begin to experiment with different patterns, maybe different time signatures using 6/8 like I showed you. And you'll probably find that picking will become a lot more natural to you, and you can alternate then between strumming and picking. So that's all for today's lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Enjoy your playing.